and playing with them. The husband, Takeshi, did almost nothing. Gonta didn't seem to bond with him either. Gonta's favorite spot is in front of this door. He spends most of his time by this living room door and doesn't seem to pay much attention to his owners. One morning 2 years ago, when Yoshimi was just about to leave for work, something happened to Takeshi.
ここですね。ここでこうもううずくまってこんな状態だったかな。たらこの子がまあ普段あんまり寄ってこないんですけど、その時はずっとそばにいてくれて、こう手をペロペロペロペロずっと食べてくれてたんですよね。
べったり寄り添って離れなくて、これは絶対おかしいと思いました。
It was a heart attack. He was in cardiac arrest.
あばら切って開いて、それで心臓を手術したんですよね。
While Takeshi was hospitalized, Yoshimi visited him every day, and she was filled with anxiety.
疲れて帰ってくると、ゴンタがこう迎えに来てくれたり、こう寄り添ってくれたり、こういった感じで、その毎日面会に行く前に。
それに救われた。
救われた。それがなかったら、私一人だったらもうどうしていいのかわからなかったです。
こちらのこの写真になります。
This is the picture of Gonta that Takeshi had with him while he was in the hospital.
今こうやって元気で生きてられますけど、やっぱりゴンタに助けてもらったと思ってますから、はい。
Gonta continues to spend most of his time in his favorite spot, in front of the door, as if nothing had happened. He watches over his owners from a distance. This is seen as a common trait among Shiba Inus. Azabu University is home to one of Japan's leading faculty of veterinary medicine. Professor Takefumi Kikusui conducts research that compares the temperament of different dog breeds. This is an example of one of his experiments. The person in the middle is the owner. The other two are people the dog has never met before. The time the dog spends being in the area around the owner is considered interaction. The time spent looking at the owner also counts. First, let's look at an European breed. It goes straight to its owner.
これが今飼い主さんと触れ合いで、時々視線も合ってると思います。時々見上げて飼い主さんの顔をこう見る時が、これもそうですね。こういうふうに、洋犬の場合というのは飼い主さんのすぐそばに来て触れ合いながら視線を送るということを繰り返していきます。
Now, how about a Shiba Inu? It will check other people but will not approach its owner.
お、飼い主さんを見てますね。でもやっぱり近い距離で見るんではなくて、少し離れたところから飼い主さんを見てます。
And finally, the Shiba comes near the owner.
で休息する時もこうやって飼い主さんの足元で触れ合うことなく、ちょっとした距離なんですけど取ってそばにいるという感じになります。これが柴犬と飼い主さんの距離の取り方ですね。べったりすることはあんまりない。でこう視線を合うことはあります。今視線合ってますね。
This is the result of the experiment conducted on more than 20 female dogs. The amount of time spent watching their owners is not much different between European breeds and Shiba Inus. However, Shibas spent far less time being physically near their owners. This result was also supported by a survey. 2,500 dog owners responded to a survey with more than 100 questions. The results showed that Shiba Inus are less likely than European breeds to physically express their attachment or affection for their owners.
柴犬はヨーロッパ原産の犬に比べて飼い主にベタベタする時間や頻度がものすごく低いということが分かりました。一歩二歩離れたところで相手の雰囲気を感じて気持ちを察しながらでも強い絆で結ばれている、そんな感じの犬だと思います。
Professor Kikusui has also conducted other experiments. First, a person puts food in a container.
Yes.
She lets the dog know that the food is there. In the next step, the lid is closed tightly.
Yes.
Let's see what the European breed does. After 20 seconds, the dog gave up trying and turned to people for help. They conducted the same experiment on a Shiba Inu. The Shiba tries hard to open the lid. It does not look at the owner at all. The dog kept trying for over 40 seconds on its own. This Shiba reacts the same way. Here is the result of Professor Kikusui's experiment conducted on nearly 400 dogs. It confirmed that Shiba Inus work harder and longer on their own compared to European breeds.
柴犬の自立心の強さというのはおそらくそれまで人との関係の中で培われてきたものだと思います。人間があまり手をかけない、関わらない、管理しないという中で飼い主からも離れていって探索して自分自身で餌を取るということもやってたと思います。それが今柴犬の自立心の強さとして残っていると思います。
Acting independently, yet watching over the owner attentively without being too close. That's what makes them Shiba Inus. Now, what is the history behind this special breed? Let's go back 30,000 years. To do so, we need to look at it in three parts: the origin of dogs, the evolution of Japanese dogs, and the revival of Shiba Inus. First, let's take a look at the origin of dogs. Today, there are hundreds of dog breeds in the world, but if you trace back their ancestors, they all lead to the wolf. Wolves have always lived in packs and survived by attacking their prey. They rarely approached human beings. However, humans succeeded in domesticating some of these wolves. This is the origin of the dog. people began to live with them and use them for hunting and other purposes. Through this process, a big difference was created between dogs and wolves. Veterinary anatomist Yoshihiro Hayashi is focusing on a new study from the UK.
狼と違う一番大きな特徴っていうのが本当はこう表情があることなんですが、つい最近の論文でですね、この狼よりもですね、この表情、特にここの目をですね大きく見開くためにこちら側の筋肉、こちら側の筋肉、これがですねこう発達してるんですね。
The facial muscles of the wolf is on the right, and the dog on the left. Compared to the wolf, the dog has two particularly developed muscles shown in red.
この2つの筋肉がより強く働くとですね、目が大きく開くんですよね。これ見たら下から見上げてる感じになりますから、より強く白目が見えますけれども、こういう表情になるとですね、何か訴えかけてるというのがよくわかると思います。でそれをですねすぐ人間側はその飼い主の方はですねこれに反応して何かしてあげようというそういう気になるし、またいうのもそれを期待してですねこういう表情を作るというそれは表情筋がとても役に立っているという証拠ですね。人間のような言葉を話すことができませんけど、表情を含むいろいろな行動でですねコミュニケーションを取るという人と犬のいい関係ができたというふうに考えていいと思います。
Since long ago, this new ability that dogs have acquired has helped create a trusting relationship between humans and dogs. There's a discovery that points to this.
はい、こちらになります。
These are 4,000 to 5,000-year-old dog skeletons found in Japan. The bones were unearthed almost in their original form. It is believed that the dog had been carefully buried.
犬は、縄文時代の人たちにとっても、狩猟の最善のパートナーでもありますし、寒い時には身を寄せ合いながら暖を取り合うようなお仲間っていうような意味合いがあると思うんですよね。でそういう意味で言うとやはり何かしら、敬意を持って接していたんじゃないのか、その最後の姿をこういうふうに埋葬することで、表しているのかなっていうふうに、思ってもいいのかなと。
Nagiso is a town in Nagano Prefecture that preserves the atmosphere of a time long past. Here there is a dog with two typical dog traits. The pink collar is a permit for taking off the leash when necessary. For many years, farmers in this area have been suffering from damages caused by monkeys. Wild monkeys were destroying their crops.
ナスを取って食べたり、ブロッコリーを食べたり、
全部食べずに捨てといて、もう散らかしてあるだけ。
Installing electric fencing did not have much effect.
ここに線があるんですよ。猿はこういう風にして入ってきます。乗ってぴょんと。
The people came up with the idea of having the Shiba Inus chase away the monkeys. This is how they're trained.
匂いを取ってますね今。
生き物。
そうですね、あれは獣の匂いなんかを感じてると思います。こういうふうにやっぱもともと本能がありますので、そういう素質のある犬はもう自然とこう森の中に連れていけば匂いがあったり動物が出てきたらもうそれに匂う。
This is a video of when a monkey actually appeared. The Shiba Inus immediately dash towards the monkey. And the monkey flees the area. This wild instinct was inherited from the wolf. And they have another trait. Even when they're in a forest, they'll come back when they hear a whistle. Dogs have learned to be obedient to humans.
これこんなにペットみたいに可愛いんですけど、猿が現れると本当に闘争心になって、もう行きたい。
The dogs of Nagiso are loved by many. However, they have undoubtedly inherited their wild instincts. Among the dogs that have emerged, Japanese dogs have evolved a bit differently. Dogs which evolved from wolves have become domesticated in many parts of the world. In Europe, mainly from the 18th to the 19th century, dogs were bred for different purposes and various breeds with diverse physical appearances were born. On the other hand, there are 6 major breeds in Japan that are designated as natural treasures. They all have erect ears and narrow faces. There's not much variety compared to European dogs. This is a member of the Shiba Inu family, which has been bred based on the skeletal structure of a Neolithic dog. It's on the slim side, but there are no major differences. The facial features of Japanese dogs look similar to wolves. In Japan, there once was a species of wolf called the Japanese wolf. Although it became extinct about 120 years ago, it had lived in the wild by hunting prey. In a new study, they found that the DNA of the Japanese wolf is actually present in the DNA of the Japanese dog. Dr. Yohei Terai analyzes the genomes of Japanese wolves and Japanese dogs. He came up with the following hypothesis.
"日本オオカミと日本犬っていうのが昔に交雑して、日本犬の中に日本オオカミのゲノム DNA が入ってるんじゃないか."
This is Terai's paper. The DNA of Japanese dogs has 2.7 billion base pairs. Among them, 45% are the same as European dogs. However, it was found that up to 4% of the genome of Japanese dogs were derived from the Japanese wolf.
%っていうとすごい小さく感じるんですけれども、27億のうちの 4% って大体1億1000万塩基対ぐらいあるので、実は非常に大きい領域っていうのが日本オオカミ由来だっていうことがわかると思います。
What exactly does this tell us?
で、一般論なんですけれども、日本犬っていうのは例えば耳が立っているだとか、あとは警戒心が強いだとかで、そういう日本犬らしい特徴っていうのにもしかしたら日本オオカミ由来のゲノム領域っていうのが関わっているかもしれません。
On the other hand, Professor Kikusui believes that the differences in the way humans treat dogs may have contributed to the unique characteristics of Japanese dogs.
ヨーロッパの人たちというのは犬をですね自分たちが作ってきた動物だから管理しなきゃいけないと、悪い遺伝子は排除しましょうと、新しいものを作ってみましょうというふうにすごく手を入れていきます。日本人っていうのはその動物と付き合う時に動物にもちゃんと命があってその命を尊んで動物には動物の生活の仕方生き方があるんだというのを割に尊重するんですね。管理しようとする姿勢がヨーロッパに比べるとかなり薄いです。想像の域を出ないんですけど、そういう日本人の持っている動物観ですね、人と動物の本来の付き合い方っていうのはどうあるかっていう考え方が異なっていて、日本人というのはそのもともといた犬というのをそのままあまり手をかけずに保存してきたんじゃないかと思われます。
This is how the Japanese dog has evolved in its own unique way. The smallest of the Japanese dogs came to be known as the Shiba Inu. Comparing the standard Shiba Inu with other Japanese dogs, you can see the difference in size. The relatively smaller Shiba Inu was an easy dog to keep. But this beloved Shiba Inu had once faced a major crisis. This is the story of the revival of Shiba Inu, once under the threat of going extinct. There's a stone statue of a dog in front of a house in a farming village in Shimane Prefecture. His name is Ishi. He is actually the ancestor of many of the Shiba Inus that exist today. During the 1930s, when Ishi was born, many Western dogs came into Japan along with European and American culture. As Japanese dogs crossbred with Western dogs, pure Japanese breeds began to disappear. The people who felt the need to take action founded a preservation society. They searched for the typical Japanese dog and bred them in order to preserve the lineage. One of the members of the Preservation Society paid a visit to Shimoyama Nobuichi, the owner of Ishi, who lived deep in the mountains. What happened to Ishi after the visit? On November 2nd, Ishi's birthday, a celebration was held in this area. Let's find out the course of events in Ishi's life through the storytelling performed at the event.
昔々、信一さんはいつも石という犬を連れて山へと猟に出かけて行きました。石はとても賢く勇敢な犬で、大きなクマを仕留めることもあったそうです。
One day, one of the members of the Preservation Society paid a visit. He said, "Ishi is an extraordinary Shiba Inu. Will you let us have him?" After thinking long and hard, Mr. Shimoyama decided to give up his beloved dog. Ishi was put on a train and it took many days to get to Tokyo. Ishi was bred to a female dog that was also very much a Shiba, and their offspring were born one after another. This is how the Shiba Inu lineage was revived. It is said that most of the Shiba Inus in Japan now have inherited Ishi's bloodline. A memorial hall for Ishi was built beside the stone statue.
これです。こちら、強運の犬1号という毛がね、すごくバリバリしてたそうです。
This is a precious photo of Ishi. Next to it is his family tree.
今ではこれがバーッと広がりまして、もうわーっと60万頭ぐらいいると言われてます。父方をずーっとたどっていくと、一番上ここにたどり着くわけです。石島根とあります。
Ishii never again returned to his hometown. However, he came back in the form of the stone statue. Nobuichi's house has been inherited to his grandson, Hiroyuki.
年取れば取るほどふるさとのことを思うと思うんですけど、それは動物だって一緒なんじゃないかなと思って、石像になって帰ってくることができ、こんなことはもう奇跡に近い幸せだと思ってるんじゃないかと思いますね。
91 years have passed since the birth of Ishii. People have gathered to celebrate his life. Now Ishii looks over the fields and mountains where he used to run around with Nobuichi. Now what does the ideal Shiba Inu look like? In a seaside town in Kagawa Prefecture, an event was held where many prize-winning dogs came together. Let's have two judges explain what the ideal Shiba is, using 3 dogs as models. First of all, the appearance. Hiryu is our model.
Unlike medium-sized dogs, they have a body shape that can demonstrate agility. Many Shiba Inus these days have loose, saggy skin, but he doesn't. This is a form with strong limbs.
Next, the eyes.
The iris is a dark brownish color. It's like the color of the bottom of a beer bottle. It's not brown, it's not black.
Next, the ears.
It has rather small triangle ears, straight on the inside and rounded on the outside.
Next, the nose. Our model is Ayaryu.
The nose influences how powerful the face looks. If you look from the side, the nose is slightly higher than the nose bridge. If it drops like that, the dog looks a bit goofy. The upward nose makes the face look much more powerful.
The Shiba Inu is the only dog breed that has a nose that rises like this.
This millimeter makes a big difference in the impression of the face.
Now let's look at the temperament. Our model is Mandai. The 3 elements that describe the temperament of the Shiba Inu are Kanyi, Ryosei, and Soboku.
Kanyi describes how strong the spirit is. This dog especially has a great spirit, so we can say he's the ideal Shiba Inu.
Next, what is Ryosei?
It doesn't bother him when I stroke him. This is my first time to touch him this way. As a judge, I've only seen him from a few meters away. A dog that barks at everyone doesn't have a strong mind. Dogs like this, that is, obedient and calm in the presence of the owner, that's real strength.
The last element is Soboku.
A Shiba Inu is not necessarily cute at first glance. Poodles, Dachshunds, and Chihuahuas are cute at first sight. With a Shiba, the more time you spend looking at it, the more you come to appreciate it. It may be something that only a Japanese person can understand. I think it boils down to one's sense of beauty. A Shiba is a type of dog that doesn't wag its tail at everyone, nor does it easily warm up to you. but once it does, it becomes protective of that person.
It's not so easy to become an ideal Shiba Inu. This is a story of another Shiba. Nana is a poster dog for a Japanese-style hotel in Ishi's hometown. She is only 15 months old. Nana is a bit mischievous.
ハサミかじりました。だからみんなここかじってるんですよ。ちょうど歯の感じといいんでしょうね、この硬さが。でいつの間にか足が抜けてしまってる。取り洗い物を手当たり次第。好きよね、こういうのがね、ほら。大好き。
痛いっちゅうの。いって。
However, once she is outdoors, Nana's behavior changes completely. She runs around on her own and doesn't care to stay around her owner. Nana's family completed Professor Kikusui's questionnaire. Kikusui analyzed Nana's personality and gave them some advice.
飼い主さんに対しても時々やんちゃな行動を取るっていうふうに分析結果がなってます。分離不安、飼い主さんから離れても平気かどうかっていうのと、ナナちゃんは割に平気な方です。だけど本来柴犬が持ってる気質を表出してるだけなので、無理やりそれをトレーニングで変えていく必要っていうのはあんまりないんじゃないかなと思います。やっぱり散歩とかですね、運動する時間を増やしてあげると穏やかになってくると思います。
Following Professor Kikusui's advice, Nana goes for a long walk again today. Next, let's meet Chacha. He won't listen to his owners. Once Chacha sits down during his walk, he is stubborn.
もういつもこんな感じです。
The owners decide to take him to a dog obedience program.
はい、行こ
When Yamashita Kunihiro praises him and gives him treats, Chacha becomes obedient.
ダメダメって言いたくなっちゃうと思いますけど、それって大体犬がやろうと思ってやってることを否定するってことになって、日本犬には特に顕著に、特に意思の対立を感じさせると、どんどん飼い主さんの言うことを無視するようになる、わざと聞こえないふりをするようになるっていうのはこの自立している犬の特徴ですので、基本的には褒める、いい感情を与える、それによって何をしてたらいいのかっていうことを犬に理解させてください。
This is a training method performed by taking away dog treats.
ちょうだい、1個。ちょうだい、1個。強引にさっと取っちゃってください。瞬間で。まずは、はい。
This makes the dog understand that good things happen when he obeys the owner. Next is a method to stop the dog from sitting down during walks. Chacha tries to grab the snack on the ground.
はい、じゃあ、行くよ。行くよ。褒めて褒めて褒めて、素晴らしい。で、もうちょっと進行方向に行って未練が残らないように。
As the owner praises and rewards Chacha with treats, he eventually begins to follow his owner willingly. This is the first step to achieving the ideal Shiba Inu. Now let's sidetrack for a quick moment and look at some healthy food for Shiba Inus. Shiba Inus often develop dementia and cataracts as they get older. Kurihara Kumiko has come up with a diet to help prevent such diseases. Her dog, Musashi, waits patiently in the kitchen. Sumire, her other dog, waits in the living room.
特に青背のお魚は認知症予防にもなると言われているオメガ3脂肪酸というのが豊富に含まれています。犬にも認知症の予防になるのではないかなと思い使っています。
She sautés green peppers, broccoli, and maitake mushrooms. Rehydrated dry tofu is added into the pan. Next, she adds Chinese herbal medicine, chrysanthemums, and wolfberries.
クコの実は老化防止、あとは中医学でいう肝機能を正常化するという働きがあります。柴犬に多いと言われている疾患の認知症予防に効果があるのではないかというふうに考えられています。で、結果も認知症予防にも効果的ですし、目の健康にもすごくこの2つの生薬は、改善の効果がこれは解明されているので、ワンちゃん白内障になる子とか緑内障になる子がとてもシニアになると多くなってくるので、その予防にも兼ねて使っていこうかなと思って。
Kurihara serves it over rice. She pours a generous amount of soup on top. It seems like a lot of work preparing their meals every day.
家族のものと一緒に違うフライパン、ちっちゃいフライパンで作るってことなので、食材もほとんど一緒のものを使っているので、ここに苦ではもうないです。
And finally, the meal is topped with stewed mackerel.
むっちゃん、ご飯だよ。
It's fulfilling and hydrating.
すごい毛並みいいねってよく言っていただけますね。水分たくさん取ると毛並みは良くなっていくんですよね。結局皮膚から生えているので、毛って皮膚の状態がいいと毛並みも自然に良くなるんですよね。
All gone. The last story is a heartwarming episode about a dog and his family. In the suburbs of Tokyo, there's a studio where you can have your pictures taken with your pet. The photographer is Daniel from Peru. His wife, Mayumi, is in charge of dress and kimono rental. She and her husband also sell handmade dried flowers. Ding is their 2-year-old daughter. And this is Kaji. They are a family. Daniel is a 4th-generation Japanese Peruvian. He lived in Peru until the age of 9. He and his family moved to Japan and obtained permanent residency. At first, he had a hard time because of the language barrier, but continued to pursue his dream of becoming a photographer. Mayumi was born in China. Her Japanese grandmother, who could not return to Japan after World War II, married a Chinese man. Mayumi grew up in China. At the age of 7, she came to Japan with her parents and grandmother. Although her family was not well off, she was able to go to graduate school on a scholarship and even study abroad. The two met at a restaurant where they worked part-time and tied the knot in 2014. Since that time, Japan has been attracting many tourists from other countries. They came up with an idea for a new business. opened a kimono rental store in Kyoto, which targeted foreign visitors. It was during that time that Kaji entered their life. Kaji was taken in by an animal welfare group when he was found lying on the road, scrawny and thin. When the couple learned that he needed a new home, they went to see him and took him in.
ちょうど夏だったので、道路も暑いじゃないですか。だからそれで多分肉球がこう割れたりとかして、で体重も今の半分ぐらいしかなかったので、
人間恐怖症だったりとかっていう子もいるっていうのを聞いてたんで、そこら辺はちょっと気にはなってたんですけど、実際に会ったらもう最初から結構もうフレンドリーに。
This is how their life started as a family. Kaji turned out to play an important role in the newly opened store. Foreign visitors that spotted Kaji flocked to the store to have a picture taken with them.
「外国人観光客とかすごい芝が大人気だったので、結構それこそ本当に4、50人ぐらいずっと集まってなんか
一緒に写真撮らせて
撮ってほしいの嵐で。
2 years later, their first daughter, Lin, was born.
リンもなんだろう、家事より上っていう風に意識が出てきて、でこっちも俺の方が上だみたいなのが出てきて、競り合いが食べ物も奪われるし。
Their business was doing well, and this happy life was supposed to continue on. However, it took a turn for the worse. The outbreak of COVID-19 swept across the world in 2020. Foreign tourists disappeared from Kyoto.
2月に旧正月だったので、旧正月の時って本当はすごい中国の方が来るんですけれども、その年はもう全くなくって、もう一気に 90% 減ぐらいですね。
ちょうどオリンピックイヤーなのもあったし、これからもっとお客さんが来るっていう予測もしていたので、
もういかに被害を最小限にするかっていうので、お店を閉めることを決めました。
The peaceful life in Kyoto that Kaji, the homeless dog, had finally found was over. Their business was permanently closed.
京都はもう家事にとっての新しいお家なので、そのお店を閉めるっていうのはなんかこの子にとったらまた寂しい思いをさせるんじゃないかなと思ったんですけれども、でもね、常日頃こんな感じでずっと足元にくっついて寝てるので、多分私たちがいればどこでもこの子はこんな感じで寝てくれるんだろうなって思って。
The family started a new life in the suburbs of Tokyo, close to where they had grown up. Today, they're taking sample photos for New Year's Day with Ding posing as a model.
鞋子。
Ding also speaks Chinese as her grandmother helps take care of her.
你看，你看看镜子，你看看镜子，你看你自己多漂亮！来，好啦，見て見て。
The studio is decorated with handmade dried flowers. And of course, Kaji joins in. He looks a bit restless, but...
等一下，待って。你讲，别动，别动。
When the photo shoot begins, He stayed still, posing for the camera. The family has overcome many hardships with Kaji. It has been 4 years since Kaji joined the family.
出会いから4年間くらいですけれども、はい、本当にたくさんいろいろありましたね。なんか人に恥ずかしくてこんなことになっちゃったよって言ってもね、なんか恥ずかしいようなことをね、家事なら全然躊躇なく言える。忠誠心が強いのでね、本当に多分どこ行ってもついてきてくれるような信頼っていうのはありますね。なんか本当に寄り添ってくれるってこういうことなんだなって、寄り添うってもう肯定もせず否定もせず、ただ寄り添うってこういうことなんだなって思いますね。受け入れるっていう。
At first impression, Shiba Inus may not seem very friendly, but they'll be there for you and comfort you. The profound charm of Shiba Inus will continue to capture the hearts of many people. One of Japan's most iconic dog breeds is the Shiba Inu. Their various expressions are full of charm. Fierce.
Welcome everybody to the B Word. I'm Steve Lee, the lead of Square Crypto, and I'm here today to moderate a discussion about Bitcoin that will span from what makes it special to the its relationship with energy, the community ethos, and the future of Bitcoin. I'm joined by 3 special guests. The first is Cathie Wood, founder, CEO, and CIO of ARK Invest. Next is Elon Musk, techno king of Tesla and chief engineer of SpaceX. And finally, Jack Dorsey, CEO of Square and CEO of Twitter. So we have a lot to talk about today. So let's get to the talk and get right to it. I'm going to start off by asking each of you a question, which is what's shaped and influenced your views on Bitcoin? And let's start with Cathie.
Okay, Steve, thank you. Well, the first thing was our focus on disruptive innovation. So starting in 2011, Brett Winton, our director of research, who I know will be on the program later, he started talking about this thing called Bitcoin at the time. And it was a curiosity as we were doing our brainstorms in research. But as we learned more about this open source ecosystem, that might fulfill the role of the payment system that the internet neglected to build into the system, not expecting commerce. We thought, this might be something. And then I became even more interested when I realized that my economics would come into play as well here. And Art Laffer, my mentor from USC, and a monetary scholar, in 2014, I asked him if he would collaborate on a paper on Bitcoin. And he was a bit of a naysayer at first, but agreed to read the paper. He read the paper, tore it up, and from an economics point of view, really wanted to understand this. And he said, I think you got something here. This is a rules-based monetary system. I've been waiting for this for my entire career. So the combination of disruptive innovation generally, economics on top of that, and the huge misunderstanding out there as to what this is, that was intriguing and launched our research effort.
Thank you. Elon, what's influenced your views on Bitcoin?
Well, I've thought about money for quite a while, obviously, since the PayPal days. And then the companies that preceded that, X.com, which I created, and Confinity, which Peter Thiel, Max Levchin, Luke Howry, and others created. When we combined the companies and made PayPal. So I've been thinking about money for a long time. And really, I think it's best to think of money as an information system, primarily an information system for labor allocation. And for practical purposes, it exists in a series of heterogeneous databases, like very different databases in bank mainframes around the world. It moves quite slowly in reality. It may seem to move fast sometimes, and it does with PayPal, which is real time. But the vast majority of the systems out there are batch processing. So the actual reconciliation may take 1 to 5 business days, sometimes longer. And you have the ACH system, which is ancient and still in operation, which is allows transfers effectively like a check would be an ACH transfer, but it's not secure. And you've got the credit card systems, which are also not secure. It would be like handing your username and password to a stranger in a restaurant if you buy a meal. So there's definitely an opportunity for something that is better from an information theory standpoint. So and there you can think of it like data on a network. I think is the way to view it. What has the most throughput? What has the least error? What drops the fewest packets? Fraud, for example, being a source of error. And government interference in currencies being a source of error. But it's fundamentally an information system. So I think it makes sense to support something that improves the quality of information with which we conduct the economy. And Bitcoin is a candidate for that. It does, I think, some things well, and it's obviously it's evolving, and there are additional things like Lightning being done on top of Bitcoin. But Bitcoin per se is mostly solving for scarcity, or rather solving for essentially having no throat to choke, decentralized. So there's no one who can be coerced in any way to empty their Bitcoin account. Well, I guess they could technically, but on an individual basis, but the system as a whole cannot. And it has an open ledger, which is also quite good. But transaction volume is low. Transaction cost is high, and usability for the average person is not yet very good. But it has a lot of potential. And I should say that, like, I'm not, and I apologize for taking a long time, but there certainly is a lot to say. In general, I'm a supporter of Bitcoin and the idea of cryptocurrency in general. But as I've said publicly, we do need to watch out for crypto taking, especially Bitcoin, using proof of work to maybe use energy that's maybe a bit too much and not necessarily good for the environment. So, but on balance, I support Bitcoin, and I'm not an investor. The only publicly traded stock I own is Tesla, and the only significant thing I own outside of Tesla is my SpaceX stock that could help create both companies. So, but apart from that, I do own Bitcoin, and Tesla owns Bitcoin, SpaceX owns Bitcoin, and then I do personally own a bit of Ethereum and Dogecoin, of course. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we'll get into some of those issues in more depth as well. Jack, how about you? What shaped your views of Bitcoin?
The network and the community. It's deeply principled. It's weird as hell. It's always evolving, and it just reminded me of the internet when I was a kid. And I encountered alt cypherpunks when I was fairly young, and this was a topic of discussion for years. I didn't touch it until 2008 when we started Square. Elon and teams at X and PayPal inspired a lot of what we were trying to do, trying to bring in more to a physical world, but we encountered this crazy predatory system that was slow, that was obtuse, and I think one of the things that we tried to do, which X and PayPal also tried to do, is build an abstraction layer around this complication and around this predatory nature that the financial industry can tend to be, and make it work for people. But when I saw Bitcoin in 2009, you see a chance to replace the whole foundation. And everything that Elon was talking about in terms of ACH and the credit card networks were built with very different agendas in a very different time frame, and it's crazy that they still exist, and they have scaled, but they just are not relevant to today, and they're certainly not relevant to the future, especially when you consider the entire world and countries like Nigeria or Ghana or India, and its interconnection with countries like the United States and Canada and all over Europe. So what really drove my thinking and drives my passion around it is, like, if the internet gets a chance to get a native currency, what will that be? And to me, it's Bitcoin because of those principles, because of that creation story, because of its resilience, because of the number of tests it's been. But what inspires me the most is just the community driving it. It just reminds me of the early internet. It's the only reason that I have a career, because I learned so much from people like who are building Bitcoin today, and I continue to learn in that sense, and I'm so grateful for it.
So that's a good segue into the next question I'd like to ask you, Jack. Is you said before that Bitcoin changes everything. Can you speak more to that?
Well, I just think that a lot of what we experience in life, when you really get down to the foundation, a lot of our monetary policies, a lot of our monetary systems cause so much distraction and so much cost. And when you get to a system where you have the potential for people to truly own it, they can verify it themselves. You don't have to have trust going in. You don't have to trust it at all. You can verify it through source code or whatever your appetite is. And that any particular person can help drive the future of it. And at the same time, it's not controlled by any state. It's not controlled by any bank. It's not controlled by any corporation. And these three parties of people who participate in the network, people who mine, and also the developers, constantly debating the correct roadmap and the way forward, is a beautiful thing. And I don't know of many other consensus-based models that have existed at that scale for this long with this amount of success, and we're still fairly early. So when I met a woman in Ethiopia 2 years ago, and she was trying to create the lift for Ethiopia. Elon, I think I reached out to you at that time as well, because she really wanted some Teslas. She still has to take paper fiat cash from her passengers and pay all of her drivers in the same way, because there's no monetary system that she can utilize. There's nothing digital. And Africa as a continent is hugely interconnected from a monetary standpoint, but also hugely taxed in that same way. So a lot of the potential that I see, the internet having a native currency helps her build her business in a much faster way. And also, if you consider something like Bitcoin existing before YouTube, before Twitter, before Facebook, a lot of the business models that we have today would not be the same. We would certainly not have the dependency we have upon the advertising business model if Bitcoin existed pre-Twitter. And I think the amount of business models that it enables, the amount of innovation it enables going forward, especially when you can consider the whole internet instead of going country by country by country by country, which you have to whenever you're dealing with finance, it really just opens the aperture. And that is what I want to see in my lifetime is a currency that is standard and sound for the internet that everyone can use.
Great. A hallmark of Bitcoin is its fixed supply of 21 million coins. Elon referenced that earlier. It may be the first system that humans have created that humans cannot later change. Kathy, I'm curious, with your background in monetary history and macroeconomics, what are your thoughts on that type of system?
Oh, well, I'll recount the story about Art Laffer and our going through the paper. And he said, as I said, first rules-based monetary system, global, ever. This is a very big idea. Once we had convinced him of the ecosystem itself. Now, this is the role that it's playing, given that the rule is a quantity rule, that 21 million units, is really a store of value role. So there are three roles of money. Store of value, very important. The means of exchange, so for transactions, and the unit of account. Every good priced in terms of whatever the unit is. So store of value is its primary use right now. The others exist. Unit of account, reserve currency of the crypto asset ecosystem. That's being seeded a little bit towards stable coins right now. But the store of value is a very big role. And means of exchange with apps built on top of the Bitcoin blockchain, we think is going to become more of a reality. Right now, high value transactions take place over Bitcoin, and that is a very useful role. So we look at those, and I remember saying to Art, "How big could this be?" And he said, "Well, how big is the U.S. monetary base?" Well, today it's $8 trillion. $8 trillion. At the time we were talking, it was $4 trillion. So we've gone through another crisis since then. And so this store of value, this idea that purchasing power will go up over time if demand rises relative to supply ultimately fixed at 21 million units. That's a very good thing. Purchasing power going up globally around the world. And this idea that it's a hedge against confiscation of wealth. And that can take place in a myriad of ways. But inflation, and especially hyperinflation in emerging markets, is the primary way. Talk about destroying purchasing power. So that's a very big idea. And I'll also mention deflation. In some ways, it's a hedge against deflation. I know some people are confused that we at ARC think that we're in a deflationary environment here in the United States. If that is true, the odds of a hyperinflation in the rest of the world, especially in emerging markets, is also true. So, but this deflation, and we learned from 08-09, there's counterparty risk associated with deflation. And I think Bitcoin would be a hedge against that eventuality as well. So it's a very big idea.
Right. I suspect among us, there's not a lot of debate about Bitcoin's potential as a store of value. But Jack, you referenced earlier it being or becoming the native currency of the internet. Can you speak more to that and also how it relates to maybe how institutions think about it?
Yeah, I mean, like just simple example. If I happen to be in Ghana and my family is in Nigeria, currently I can take anywhere from and I need to send money back, anywhere from 10 to 30% off the top just to send that money back. Whereas if you just focus on the worldwide remittance problem, Bitcoin solves so many of those problems today instantly without having to go through any intermediaries or any slowness or complicated systems that a corporation or a state created. So I think having sound money with that is separate from the state is the idea. Having it completely verifiable by everyone, including the state, including corporations, including individuals, including developers who want to build on top of it, is quite powerful, and that's what keeps it secure and strong. And I think that's, we need more of that, which is why this one of the reasons why this conversation is so important is as entities come into the space, it's not just buying an asset and holding on to an asset and treating it as an investment. There's something special that created this, and something precious and something very unique, which has to be protected, and we need to do whatever we can to help that thrive as well.
Elon, I'm curious your opinion on this. You mentioned earlier about Bitcoin's throughput, or the importance of throughput, maybe some concerns around Bitcoin. Can you speak? Do you think Bitcoin can become peer-to-peer cash?
Well, Bitcoin does have a fundamental scarcity limit at the base layer that's designed in. That doesn't mean you can't have some layer 2 system in theory like Lightning. And I understand Lightning is doing well in some small countries. There's some question mark as to whether you need a money transmitter license. Just a debate as to whether that's needed, given that it is not open ledger. So that's a whole separate debate, of course. But Bitcoin by itself simply cannot scale to be the monetary system for the world at base layer. But with a second layer, this is possible depending upon how that second layer is implemented. Yeah, that's part of why I think there may be some merit to something that may seem silly, like Ethereum, like Dogecoin. I think Ethereum also, like I said, the three things I own outside of SpaceX and Tesla, and obviously it's a Neuralink and Boring Company, but of any significance are Bitcoin by far, and then some Ethereum and some Doge. So if the price of Bitcoin goes down, I lose money. I'm not sort of, I might pump, but I don't dump. It's not a case of. I definitely do not believe in getting the price high and selling or anything like that. And I would like to see Bitcoin succeed. I think there's some merit to. This is not a slam on Bitcoin. There's some merit to considering something that has higher max transaction rates. And a lower transaction cost, and kind of seeing how far you could take a single layer network where the exchanges act as a de facto second layer. I think you can probably take that further than people realize, and as bandwidth increases over time, latency decreases. SpaceX's Starlink is actually playing a role in this, and I think long term people will probably have access to worldwide access to gigabit level connectivity at low latency, and so at low cost. And so then your base layer could do a lot of transactions if you take that into account. So yeah, but like I said, Bitcoin with a layer 2 system, so they could scale to do a vast number of transactions. Same goes for Ethereum.
Question about the scaling at the layer 1. The concern from the past 5 years of debate in the Bitcoin community is that would sacrifice too much decentralization and hurt the censorship-resistant properties of Bitcoin. I'm curious if what are your thoughts on that? Are you sensitive to that? And are you concerned about losing some of the special properties of Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency by scaling at layer 1?
Yeah, I mean, these things are helpful to use the physics tools of thinking and say, scale up, scale down, and see if it still makes sense. So if scaling up the transaction block doesn't make sense, why don't you scale it down? And have it be, so that somebody, with a laptop from 2008 can still run a Bitcoin node. Why not slow it down? Oh, you want to slow it down? Well, maybe you're at the wrong number then.
There's actually people, there's members in the community that do want to slow it down. but I understand your point.
It's silly. The reality is, like, the average person is not going to run a Bitcoin node. So this is a and Bitcoin, it was a lot of clever ideas, but these parameters were set, I don't know what, in 2008 or something, maybe 2009. And there've been some improvements since then, but not a lot. So it's sort of like if there was still, in 2008, there was still a non-trivial number of people on modems. So, now it is quite common to get 100 megabit connection just for a house. Some houses have gigabit connections. So, and that trend is obviously in the direction of higher bandwidth and lower latency. And if somebody else doesn't do it, Starlink certainly will. So I have high confidence that you will be able to maintain a decentralized finance system while still having a much bigger blockchain, aka ASCII text ledger, a hash ledger. You can make the hash ledger bigger without suffering from decentralization as the average connectivity improves, obviously.
One idea would be to to put a Bitcoin full node in Starlink terminals. That way more people would be running it.
Actually, I have run this by the team at one point. I had this idea, which is kind of off the wall, but like, let's say you need a little space heater, and normally your space heater would just be pure entropy. But what if that space heater was also a Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge mining node? Pick your currency, and so then you'd be heated up, and you would also mine your crypto and have connectivity in one.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I mean, better than running a space heater.
Absolutely. Are there any other, so you're drawn to Dogecoin a little bit. Are there any other gaps in Bitcoin that you see that cause you to be drawn towards Dogecoin?
Oh, I think, I think there's Doge has the Doge community, I think, is somewhat irreverent, obviously, and has great memes and loves dogs, and I love dogs and memes, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, and I think there's Occam's razor, which is the simplest answer is the most likely. It's a summary of Occam's razor. The simplest answer is the most likely one. Then there's a friend of mine came up with a variant on that the most ironic outcome is the most likely one. And then I have a variant on that, which is the most entertaining outcome is the most likely one. So if that is true, then the most ironic and entertaining outcome would be that the cryptocurrency that was started as a joke to make fun of cryptocurrencies ends up being the leading cryptocurrency. That would be the most ironic outcome.
Jack, what are your thoughts on that? Is Bitcoin resilient enough to overcome that?
I think it's resilient, but also I think like you find, that's what attracts me to Bitcoin in the first place is the irreverence. A lot of that just brings it forward, and at first go it makes it a little bit inaccessible, but as people get into it, it makes it more accessible and more spreadable. And I absolutely think the resilience is there. I think it's important to have fun as well. And anyway folks can express themselves. I think that goes back to the main idea of like how do we create a native currency for the internet? Anything that goes towards that path. Like that's whatever wackiness or fun we can have along the way, that's going to make it a lot more enjoyable, and it's going to make a lot more people want to use it.
I'd also point out there's nothing stopping someone from creating a Bitcoin wallet that's like fun and has memes, has dogs, that's possible as well. Great. Let's move on.
Right now at this point.
Let's move on to the next topic, which is Bitcoin and energy. It's a really hot topic that lots of people are talking about. Let's start with Elon. You've been vocal on this. You've said that. I mean, you said many things about it. You've also said that Tesla will resume payments in Bitcoin payments if the renewable energy is approximately 50% and sort of looks like it's on a positive future trend. What do you think the state of things are with respect to that?
Yeah, so I do think that there appears to be a positive trend in the energy usage of Bitcoin. Actually, part of this is due to the drop in Bitcoin price. I mean, what I observed, or what I thought I was seeing, there may be some disagreements on this, but from when Tesla announced that it had acquired Bitcoin and was doing Bitcoin transactions, there was a massive run-up in the Bitcoin price, and also a massive increase in the amount of energy used to mine Bitcoin. And I think I understand renewable energy quite a bit. I mean, Tesla does solar and interacts with a lot of wind generation through our mega pack, because basically need to store energy from wind and from solar. So we're pretty plugged into the renewable energy industry. And there was just no way that you could basically double or triple the amount of energy in such a short period of time with renewables. But you could shovel coal that fast. And so I was like, look, this is too sketchy. Tesla's mission is accelerating the advent of sustainable energy. We can't be the company that does that and also not do appropriate diligence on the energy usage of Bitcoin. So all I did was I said, look, we're going to suspend Bitcoin transactions for now. We're not selling any Bitcoin, nor am I selling anything personally, or nor is SpaceX selling any Bitcoin. Again, I want to emphasize SpaceX, Tesla, and I own Bitcoin. I also own a little bit of Ethereum and Doge, but the companies just own Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin that I own is worth much more than the Ethereum or Doge. So clearly, if I'm if these actions negatively affect me financially, if I was purely financially motivated, then I would not express this reticence about Bitcoin energy usage. Now, it looks like Bitcoin is shifting a lot more towards renewables, and a bunch of the heavy-duty coal plants that were being used, unequivocally being used, this is not a question mark, have been shut down, especially in China. So I think it's probably, we want to do a little bit more diligence to confirm confirm that the percentage of renewable energy usage is most likely sort of at or above 50%, and that there is a trend towards increasing that number, and if so, then Tesla will resume Bitcoin, accepting Bitcoin. So I think we want to just do a little bit more diligence, and I think, but most likely the answer is that Tesla would resume accepting Bitcoin, most likely.
That's good to hear. I would agree with that. Kathy?
Yeah, may I ask a question? Elon, I'm not quite sure if you saw the paper that Square and ARC did together on making Bitcoin mining a part of a utility, a broad-based utility ecosystem, whereby, the overage from sunshine or wind powers the Bitcoin mining machine, thereby enabling the proliferation of renewables to a much faster extent, or at a faster rate than otherwise would be the case. What do you think of that?
Well, the problem is that in order to operate so-called mining or hashing rigs, in order to operate a bunch of hashing rigs, effectively, you have to run them 24/7, which means you need base load. You can do that with solar and wind plus battery, but if you only did it based on solar or wind overage, your hashing rig utilization would be much less. So you'd be at a disadvantage.
Sure.
Hydro or geothermal are great, as renewable means. I'm also pro nuclear. I think modern nuclear power plants are safe, contrary to what people may think. I really think it's possible to make very, very extremely safe nuclear. I'm talking about fission. You don't need fusion. And then, of course, fusion. You just got that big fusion reactor in the sky called the sun. It comes up every day. But I think a combination of solar and wind plus stationary storage will get you that base load, so you can run hashing 24/7.
Okay. Jack, I'm curious. You've stated that Bitcoin incentivizes renewable energy. That's what we're talking about now. Do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, everything that Elon said and Kathy mentioned, but it's also incentivizing a lot of innovation in just energy space, and just like looking at unused energy. There's a company called Great American Mining that caps the methane flares on oil fields to power their rigs. And you just imagine, and you mentioned nuclear, Elon, as well, and just imagine all the unused energy that is just being wasted every single day. And being able to get that energy and converting it into a secure, sound money system for the planet feels like a worthy trade-off. And that's the sort of incentive that I think is most powerful, is like, how do we reuse what is being currently just dumped on the ground and wasted and not considered, and how do we do that at scale? And I think that's a bigger conversation that I think is missing. But I agree with everything that Elon has said, and also the paper we put forth.
I'm curious if any of you have thoughts on how what the industry can do to accelerate the transition to renewable energy. And like Elon specifically, could Tesla Energy or Starlink play a role?
Well, I think Tesla can play a role. Tesla's literal reason for existence. The reason I've put so much of my life energy into Tesla, which is a lot. In fact, I would say that I've had some pretty tough life experiences, and Tesla is responsible for probably 2/3 of all personal and professional pain combined. Just to give you a sense of perspective there. So this is a hella hard situation. But we do solar, commercial solar, solar retrofit, as well as the solar roof, and we make consumer battery packs called Powerwall for houses and small businesses, and then the utility scale, which are gigantic. We've done now a number of gigawatt hour installations. That's a lot. That's a lot. And a lot of them actually have been for load leveling the grid. Mostly they are, and combined with the first really big one we did, which is 100 megawatt installation in Australia. That's actually helped stabilize a huge portion of the South Australian grid, because it's able to react so fast. In fact, at first, because they've got a billing system in Australia that I think works at the sort of millisecond level, and we were operating at the microsecond level. So the system was operating so fast that the measuring system couldn't see it. But so Tesla's certainly doing a lot to enable renewables, especially wind and solar. And in fact, the limiting factor for us right now is cell production. So we need to both internally get the Tesla internal battery cells produced, as well as increase supply from suppliers. Generally, when I talk to our suppliers and they say, how many cells would you like us? How many cells can you make? Because sometimes they're concerned, was Tesla going to compete with them on cells? I'm like, no. If you want to make the cells, be our guest. It's just that we need a crazy number of batteries, and they need to be done. It also needs to be mined and produced and manufactured in an ethical and environmentally sound way. So, Tesla, we really do aspire to be the good guys, to be a company that people can believe in. It doesn't mean we don't make mistakes, but that's what we try. So, yeah, but I think generally hydro, especially existing hydro, is good for mining. Geothermal, there's lots of places in the world that have geothermal energy. And like I said, nuclear is also good. Yeah, I think just I'm like as I said earlier, the expectation is not like that the energy production must be pure as the driven snow, but it must it can't be using it also cannot be using the world's dirtiest coal, which it was for a moment there. That's just difficult for Tesla to support in that situation. So I think, but I do think long-term renewable energy will actually be the cheapest form of energy. It just doesn't happen overnight. But as long as there is a conscious and determined and real effort by the mining community to move towards renewables, then obviously Tesla can support that.
That's great. Kathy, we've been talking a lot about energy, but many institutions are facing questions around Bitcoin's relationship with ESG. Can you maybe speak a little bit more to what is S and G in ESG and how Bitcoin might support those?
Sure. So E, of course, is environmental, S is social, and G is governance. And there is a massive movement afoot in the institutional world, especially, to embrace ESG and make sure that their asset managers are doing the same. So if you we've just talked about environmental, and I really do believe that Bitcoin will be much more environmentally friendly, certainly than traditional gold mining or the traditional financial services sector. In many ways, it already is, and it's just going to get better that way. In terms of social, I know that many institutions, when they are thinking of social, they think of diversity and equity, pay equity, and all of that. But if from our point of view, the disruptive innovation point of view, social is much more than that. It is saving lives, of course, autonomous technology, that would be another topic for Elon. But in this case, allowing access to payment technology, as Jack is saying, everywhere around the world without friction. And just back to the remittance example, I think if I've got these stats correctly, there are certain countries in the world that are incredibly dependent on remittances for GDP. Tonga, 37%, El Salvador, which just deemed Bitcoin legal currencies, 24%, Nepal, 24%. And I think the remittance industry globally, I know it's roughly 700 billion. So saving people these egregious fees, think about it, you're paying anywhere from 8% to, as Jack said, 30% of your $100 that you're sending back to your family. That is social responsibility, I would submit, as is just the economic empowerment that Bitcoin will enable. We've talked about that already. And I know that Alex Gladstein is going to be talking later about, the 4.3 billion people in the world who are hostage to authoritarian regimes, or the 1.3 billion who are living in double-digit and triple-digit inflation, if not more. Saving them from the destruction of their purchasing power certainly is a noble social goal. So we expand social to be much more than the traditional ESG community. And then on governance, you've got the transparency of the ecosystem. It's completely transparent, unlike the opaqueness of financial systems and the toll takers in the traditional financial world. And I think a huge part of governance in the Bitcoin ecosystem are the Bitcoin core developers. Now, before I met them, and I've had the pleasure and the honor of meeting many of them, that was a part of this ecosystem I didn't understand. But actually getting to sit down and talk to them, if I have a learning curve need, it certainly is on the technology side. But in terms of talking to them about economics, economic theory, failed monetary regimes historically, they know economic history, many of them, better than anyone I've ever met. So that gives me a great degree of confidence that they do believe they are on a noble mission. They could be paid a lot more than they're being paid right now if they worked at Google or Facebook or some of these other areas, but they've chosen this sense of purpose for a noble goal, and they have incredibly strong technology backgrounds. As well as a good understanding of economic history, especially monetary history. And it gives me a great deal of comfort as I think about the governance of the ecosystem, much more so than I think we would find in other financial ecosystems. And just to give you an example of that, I think 2 years, we were talking about, there's a big debate about reorganizations, I know, in the Ethereum network right now. Well, we saw the core Bitcoin developers and others at work back in 2019 when Binance tried to reorganize in order to reclaim 7,000 Bitcoin that were hacked. And they just wouldn't allow it. So we've already had some very good tests of the Bitcoin ecosystem, including developers. So that would be my answer.
Thank you. And it's a great transition to the next topic area, which is Bitcoin ethos. And what is Bitcoin ethos? I mean, Bitcoin was born as open source and it's very transparent. There's also a staunch defense from the community around decentralization and a lot of the core principles of Bitcoin. So let's talk a little bit about that and what makes it special. Jack, Square has done a lot to support open source Bitcoin. Can you tell us a little bit about what Square has done and what advice you'd have for other institutions looking to follow in its footsteps?
Yeah, I mean, I was very skeptical of corporations when I was a kid, and I'm still skeptical of corporations today. And as we've used corporations to be, they've been great vessels for what we need to do and the ideas that we need to bring to the world. But Bitcoin is not that. And when we were considering Bitcoin and how Square intersected, I was really concerned with how we don't disrupt the community in a negative way, how we promote what is amazing about it, and how we help it grow in that way, in the way that it wants to. So we created your team, Steve, which is Square Crypto, which is hiring open source developers to work on whatever they want and whatever they think is most important to help Bitcoin. We created an organization called COPO, which we gave up all of our crypto patents so that the community can use them in defense against trolls and some crazy characters we won't name. And we continue to find ways that, following that Bitcoin path, we're going to create a hardware wallet. We're probably going to do a lot more in hardware. Everything that we do in the space is going to be completely open source, from the hardware design to the software, taking in the community's push. And we're building a developer platform as well, in the same open development, open source, and completely transparent. So I think as institutions or companies like ours consider getting in the space, I think contribution back to the community is important. Tesla did this with accepting payments for Tesla and finding security holes and improving the stack. And as I said before, we can't just see this as an asset that we own and an investment vehicle. This is something that has the potential to change everything and make the lives of everyone on this planet better in some small, maybe marginal way, but those margins will be meaningful as they compound over time.
Great. Elon, you've tweeted before that any wallet that doesn't give the user their private key should be avoided at all costs. Can you tell us more about why is that important, and how does what's its relationship with decentralization?
Well, it's difficult to say that if you own crypto in an exchange and the exchange does not give you your private keys, it's not clear that you own anything. I mean, if there's something if that exchange breaks or is hacked or or is subject to seizure by the government or something like that, your crypto is gone. So in order to actually have a properly decentralized finance, which I'm a fan of, I think it makes sense. Then you have to own your private keys, and you should be the only one who has your private keys. So if you're the only one who has the private keys, then you own it. If someone else has your private keys, effectively they own it too, and the security of your crypto is then dependent upon them or any entity that can affect them. So I think what Jack's doing sounds like a good idea to have a hardware wallet that's the only thing that contains your private keys. I think that's like in terms of sort of empowering the people, which I very much believe in. Then I think you want to have people have their own wallets and be the only ones that have the private keys to that wallet. So-called wallet, the other side of the of the crypto.
Right. I agree, and I think we'll see an emergence too of new solutions that use multi-sig, like with a 2 of 3 keys, where the user has 2 keys, and then you get assisted custody by having an institution hold a 3rd key. Can be a good solution as well. Yeah.
Well, you can just put your private key in something that has dual access or have voting access as an application on an existing network.
Right. So the Bitcoin community is known for staunchly defending Bitcoin's principles. Sometimes it can be rude and aggressive, but I think what it stems from is just a desire to not have wealthy or powerful people or institutions negatively impacting Bitcoin or sort of changing the rules in favor of them. I'm curious to hear from each of you what role you feel like you and your own institutions, your own companies, what role can you play in Bitcoin, and how do you positively impact it without having these negative drawbacks? Kathy, maybe start with you.
Sure. Yes. Well, ARC has stood for 2 things: democratization and transparency. Democratize it. We're the closest you'll find to a venture capital fund in the public equity markets, and I kind of feel that Bitcoin, or we have Bitcoin's DNA from that point of view. One of the things in terms of democratization is education. We have one of our missions, values, is to educate, and I do believe that that some of Yassine El-Mandra's white papers. Yassine's our lead crypto analyst, who's worked very closely with you, Steve, on this conference, are helping the cause. We've done, and not only for retail investors, we found that we had to do a bit more when it came to institutional investors, just because of the way that they invest and the way they like to receive information. So just like in our investments, we've been the retail community has been more attracted to us first, and now the institutional community is coming along. So I do think our transparency of research, especially in the social world, social media, pushing our research out for free to anyone, is part of our way of helping the community. And I do think encouraging, and this is something that Jack just said, I would encourage the support of the Bitcoin core developer community. As I said before, it's amazing to me, having gotten to know some of them, how strong their sense of purpose is here. And so we'd like to be a helpful in making that happen as well.
That's great. Jack, how about you? How do you view your own personal role and the companies you run?
I think my own personal role through the companies I run is to really push for more decentralization, like at everything that we intend to do with the wallet, being non-custodial, building a developer platform, focusing on non-custodial solutions. On the Square side is important, being completely open development and open source, but I also think it's important on the Twitter side as well. My biggest focus right now is on a decentralized social media protocol. We're calling it Blue Sky. It's super early, but we've learned a lot from what makes Bitcoin Bitcoin and why that's important. I've learned a lot in that sense as well. And I think, just continuing to push on that thread and show it with our actions every single day in support of this community that's taught me so much and I think will benefit so many people. That's what I'm focused on.
What about letting Twitter advertisers pay in crypto?
Yeah, I think enabling anyone. As you know, Elon, if we had Bitcoin or native currency for the internet before Twitter started, it just creates so many different business models that we wouldn't have to be so dependent upon advertising generally. And
sure.
I do believe that that we have them, any form of payment that they want to use, we should be able to take. So okay. Absolutely, but I'm more focused on how do we create economic incentives in the network itself without having to rely on advertising.
Yeah, it's just that the money has to come off of the crypto so-called coins, the hash strings, have to come off and get translated into real products and services. So the more sort of off-ramps there are to real products and services, even at the institutional level, although there are certainly many small advertisers on Twitter, it seems like accepting Bitcoin, maybe some other cryptos for advertising payments on Twitter would be supportive of Bitcoin.
100%, and also looking at just general commerce through Twitter itself.
That would be great. Sorry, what, Elon?
I was asking Jack if he's going to do it.
Oh. Can we get a product announcement today? Elon, how about you? You obviously you're a big personality on Twitter. What are your thoughts on your role and your company's role in Bitcoin and sort of preserving the ethos?
Yeah, I generally think we should do things that benefit the people as a whole and increase the probability that the future is good. So, I think to me it just seems self-evident that we should kind of take these set of actions most likely to make the future good. And I think probably crypto or some of the cryptocurrencies will make the future better, most likely. It's not, I always think of these things in terms of probabilities, but I think it's probably better for there to be a prosperous Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, maybe some others in the future. And I think it can have an empowering effect for individuals and increase the power of the individual relative to government. And really, if you think of government is just a corporation in the limit. So sometimes some people are against corporations but for government. It's like, guys, government is just a corporation in the limit. It's the biggest corporation of all, and it's got a monopoly on violence. So if you don't like corporations, you should really hate government.
There you go. All right. We got about, we'll try to wrap up in 10 minutes. So let's move on to future of Bitcoin. So Tesla and Square have both put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Kathy, I'm curious to hear from you. what advice would you have for other institutions looking to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet?
Well, I guess the first piece of advice is, just make sure, and I actually learned this after both Square and Tesla put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. The Bitcoin is being treated as an intangible asset. And so we need to get FASB to reconsider this, because with an intangible asset, if the asset goes up in price, it can't be marked up on their books. But if it goes down, it must be marked down. So, there's some asymmetry there, which is, we need to change that given what we believe Bitcoin is. And I do believe if, I'll harken back to something, well, it was either Elon or Jack said, think about it, you take away the boundaries, the different currencies, just think about how explosive growth could be and how wide reaching taking the friction out of the system could be. So I would encourage corporations to think about that this ability to do business anywhere in the world, ultimately, obviously, we're paving the way here. That's certainly a consideration. It also will serve as a hedge against inflation, especially, and as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of emerging markets that are suffering from significant inflation. In other words, the purchasing power of those populations is going down. So they are going to migrate to Bitcoin and other ways to preserve purchasing power. And again, being able to sell to them in that kind of currency would be very useful. I'd also suggest, once again, this idea of deflation, I think, is going to be a real thing. There's going to be good deflation caused by innovation, so demand will boom because of that. There's going to be bad deflation because so many companies out there have not been investing enough in innovation. Their products are going to go obsolete, and they're going to be stuck trying to service the debt that they piled on because their shareholders wanted profits and wanted them now. So they leveraged up to buy back their shares and pay dividends, and so I think that's going to be the source of bad deflation and counterparty risk. And we learned from 0809 that counterparty risk can be devastating. Almost cataclysmic. So a hedge against that as well, I think, would be another reason to do it.
Great.
Yeah, it's funny. It kind of like Tesla's bank balances in Europe have negative interest rate. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, if you've got like 2% inflation on 1% interest, you're technically minus 1% return. But nonetheless, it is quite annoying to just see your bank balance drop in real time in Europe. Europe has negative interest rates. This is insane.
Yeah. Paying the banks, paying the banks to hold
the bank to keep your money. I'm like, what?
It is crazy.
Like, what? We should definitely move that into Bitcoin.
I believe Ray Dalio said, "Buy Bitcoin and not bonds." So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jack, you've talked about design being an underfunded area in Bitcoin, and Elon earlier mentioned usability could improve a lot. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. What do you see as the future of how can design impact Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Bitcoin network is beautifully designed as a protocol in the way it works. I mean, it went after a single problem, and it does in an absolutely astounding way. But I think the endpoints of people getting into it is still a little bit confusing. So I think the more energy we spend on wallets and making sure that wallets are simple and accessible and they're non-custodial as well. Yeah. I think the best example of this is that I know of is probably this wallet called Moon. And it's just simple, straightforward. It's it does an amazing thing with key management that my mom and friends new to Bitcoin can understand. Does amazing in storage, and it also has a very clever implementation of Lightning, so that you can use it in a transactional way without having to think about it, just with QR codes in a way that makes sense. So more work like that, I think, really brings us forward.
Great. Let's wrap things up with a final question for each of you. I guess what is your hope for Bitcoin? How it can impact the world? Let's see, Elon, do you want to start with that? So what's your hope? What's your hope for Bitcoin?
Well, my hope for, I guess, crypto in general is that it can improve the efficiency of the information system that we call money. So if the core efficiency of money is improved and money has less error, where, like I said, error is like in any kind of government interference or fraud or anything like that, this will naturally lead to basically a better standard of living and more power to the individual, which I very much agree with.
Great. Kathy?
Yeah, and I would segue from what Elon just said is, money has powerful network effect qualities. And so, we talked about ESG earlier. I think that, of course, that aspiration, having, this money be the best from an ESG point of view, that's really talking about solving some of the world's problems right now, which we definitely want to do. But I also am very excited about this idea of network effect and the convergence of blockchain technology and artificial intelligence from a technology point of view. I think, think about the internet in the earliest days. We couldn't imagine what was going to happen, but the impetus to growth was pretty incredible. So I am looking at this rules-based monetary policy, making for better lives around the world, as we've just said. But I'm also looking at the technology itself and the convergence between blockchain technology and artificial intelligence, to change the world in ways that we cannot imagine right now, solving even more problems, but creating more opportunities as well, which is the history of technology and disruptive innovation.
Jack, what's your hope for Bitcoin?
My hope is that it creates world peace or helps create world peace. I mean, Elon said it earlier, like we have all these monopolies of violence and the individual doesn't have power. And the amount of cost and distraction that comes from our monetary system today is real. And it takes away attention from the bigger problems, some of the bigger problems that Elon is trying to solve, like get us to a multi-planetary humanity. All these distractions that we have to deal with on a daily basis take away from those bigger goals that affect every single person on this planet, increasingly so. So it may sound a little bit ridiculous, but like you fix that foundational level and everything above it improves in such a dramatic way. So it's going to be long term, but my hope is definitely peace.
That's fantastic. Well, I'd like to thank all three of you for giving us your time today. It's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you to the audience for tuning in. The B word is not just this discussion, but we have a lineup of incredible speakers and content. So I encourage everyone to check it out. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Welcome everybody to the B word. I'm Steve Lee, the lead of Square Crypto, and I'm here today to moderate a discussion about Bitcoin that will span from what makes it special to its relationship with energy, the community ethos, and the future of Bitcoin. I'm joined by three special guests. The first is Cathie Wood, founder, CEO, and CIO of ARK Invest. Next is Elon Musk, techno king of Tesla and chief engineer of SpaceX. And finally, Jack Dorsey, CEO of Square and CEO of Twitter. So we have a lot to talk about today. So let's get to the talk and get right to it. I'm going to start off by asking each of you a question, which is,